You know, a guy wants the independent Chevelle to be productive. So if she's being built to recycle tires, can't do that one at a time. So we're gonna lock up the rear, get them both spinning. I got a disc brake kit for the rear I gotta put in, and maybe we'll put some shocks in. I don't know. I don't know if we're even gonna have time. The brake kit I got here is from Lead Brakes, and it looks like it fits 64 to 72A body, 67F body, and 63 to 67X body with the non-staggered shocks. I got the front ones on already. I didn't do the rear because I knew that I was going to do something back here. I had dreamed of maybe putting a 12 bolt in here because this 10 bolt is most likely just going to grenade on a 1-2 shift, but can't be choosy. It's what we got. So I got to take the axle shafts out anyway to put the mini spool in, and I got to do that same step to put the brakes in, so miles will just do it all at once. I'm going to start by taking these tires off and get that brake drum hardware off, and then we'll move into the center section there. Oh, that one's full of air. So how a guy is figuring putting this brake system together here is specifically for a burnout competition. So how I have it designed is when I hit the brake pedal, I'm going to get nothing but front brakes. And that's for burnouts, obviously. We want as much tire speed as fast as possible, and we don't want to slow that down by hitting the brakes. But I want disc brakes back here for a couple different reasons. One, if I get into a jam in the burnout box and I got to bring her around, I got a handle right next to the driver's seat, wrench on that, and we can whip it around. And also, if I do end up maybe putting it around on the street to like a local car show, or maybe running a quarter mile, I don't know. You have to have 4 brakes rules. I don't know who wrote those. But anywho, a guy can get on the pedal and get on the handle and bring this thing down a little bit. So we're gonna go with the discalators in the back as well. This one is just pretty stuck on there. I'm gonna put just a little bit of heat on here, see if we can't coax it off that way. There we go. Right now I'm actually having some tubes bent up for the front. So when those show up, we should just be able to lay them into place and plug them in, hopefully. And that'll save us a bunch of time. I'm running out of it. I don't got enough time. We got the emerger sizzle bizzle in the way. I think I'm just gonna hack those off because I really don't see any reason I would be using one. And it's got a bunch of junk underneath going up to the front. Apparently there's a pedal up there or something, I don't know. So I think I'm just gonna delete on all that. That's, wow, that didn't work out well. So this whole assembly here actually comes off, but before we could do that, we gotta get the axle shaft out of here. So in the differential, there's some C-clips. Guy snips them out, then these will pull out, then we can actually get this off and put that disc brake hardware on. First, I'm gonna throw some stands in here so I can get my air jack out of the way. We gotta pop that cover off, and if anything comes out, it's just not gonna be good. I spent 25 minutes scraping stuff off of this rear end just to even see what it is. And it's big, thick clumps like this. So she's been leaking for years. I'd be surprised if there's anything in it. Sidetrack. Started scraping again. Just had the floor swept from last time. Now I got a mess again. This is all full. Once I get this stripped down, I think I'm at least gonna just pretend to clean the rest of this and go tss, 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 so it looks a little bit better. First things first, what is this? What do we got? This is a 10 bolt. You can tell because it's got 10 bolts, but wait, there's more. This is an 8.5 10 bolt, and you could tell because it's got this bulge here for the ring gear. And 8.2 has a weird thing that looks like this that sticks out. And that's an easy way to tell the 8.2. Then you can order up your mini spool. I'm going to take all these bolts off except for the top 3. I'm just going to keep those loose, and then we'll flap this open. Throw that under there. And it's probably going to go and dirt and stuff's going to fall out, but if there is any oil in there, then we'll catch that up. Hey, remind me to get a gasket for this in the morning. Easy. Oh, I'll be dipped. There's something in it. That's good for the gears, I guess. It actually don't look that bad. Oh, you know what? Did I put some oil in this maybe before the trip home? I must have. One of you guys go back to the original revival on this and bleep bloop down there in the comments, because this looks mighty fresh and she was mighty full. Cold snack time. Well, hey there, little fella. It's hard to explain because you guys can't feel it, but there's regular gear oil, which you guys know what that feels like. Then down in here, there's like a maple syrup consistency. And that's this lighter color in here. That's all metal shavings, small metal shavings. So this definitely hasn't been fully flushed in a long time. Look at that, that's all metal. But, like I say, there's no chunks in here. So we're off to a good start there. So what we gotta do today, we're gonna drop this pin out. There's a bolt right here that holds that in. And then these are our axle shafts right there. And with this pin out, we can push this axle shaft in. And then there's a small clip in here I'll show you once I get it out. We push that clip off, then we can actually grab this axle shaft and pull it right out of the housing on both sides. We're gonna take these small gears here. These are called itsy bitsy spider gears. And we're just going to delete on them, and basically we're going to put a block in here, and that's going to hold both axle shafts together no matter what. So at all times, 100% of the time, both tires are going to be spinning. The downside to that is like something as simple as getting into a gas station or the liquor store. Anytime you go to turn, the outside wheel is going to drag. So if you're turning left, for example, your right tire needs to turn faster to make that radius, but it can't because it's locked. So it's going to drag and squeal and bark and hop, and it's not very good for daily driving. But for what we're doing, I actually want it. I don't ever want to worry about posi or if I have both tires spinning. And we're not really planning on street driving it that much. But a guy can hang on to these spider gears if he wants to, put them in a Ziploc bag, try out the mini spool, and if you want to go back to spider gears having a single wheel peel, you just put this all back in, tighten it up, and you're good to go. So I'm going to get in here and get the rest of this oil out, and then I'll drop this pin out, and I'll show you how to do one side real quick. Would be nice if this would last for one burnout competition, so we'll try to take care on it at least a little bit. So this is pretty interesting, and I might have to retract what I just said. See this bolt holding the spider gear pin in here, this pin? This is a 1/2 inch, and I'm pretty certain that means this is an 8.2. If it was an 8.5, this would be a 5/16. And this looks quite a bit smaller in there now that I'm looking at it. So someone might have just put a different cover on it. There's also a rumor that in 70, 72, they didn't quite know what to do with the 10 bolt, and some came out with different covers and things like that. And this one doesn't have the ears off the bottom either. So, I don't know, kind of interesting. So here's an 8.2 mini spool, and here's an 8.5 mini spool. And essentially, those spider gears come off, these go in there, and then this block goes in the center, and that's what locks these two together. And looking at these side by side now, definitely have an 8.2. I suppose a guy could move that. Hey, there's the pin. don't know, roll one side, spider gear will come out. Roll this other side, and that gear will come out. Now that I've got it here, we can push these axles in. There's the C-clip. That one's ready to come out. Pull this side in. There's that C-clip. And now that axle's ready to come out. There's the splined part of the spider gear there. And there. Well, they don't look too bad. Normally a feller would go ahead and take a look at your axle bearing here and everything, but I'm sure it's bad, so I'm just going to pretend I did. So I couldn't help it. I had to check. The bearing is good enough, but there are so many miles on this axle shaft that it is ready for a new one. There's a groove in there. It doesn't matter when you have that deep of a groove in here. You're just going to be in the same position, and your seal isn't going to seal very properly once it gets too bad. So this 10 bolt is definitely in need of quite a few upgrades anyway. I don't want to put any more money in it than this mini spool, and we're going to be lucky if it hangs around for a little bit. So I'm just going to have to look at maybe doing a 12 bolt swap, or these 10 bolts can be pretty stout if you upgrade your axle shafts and do some other things, but just going to have to put it on the to-do list for the future. Right now I ain't got the time. I got to thinking, not very often feller has an opportunity like this, so might as well show on this a little bit in case you've never been into a rear end. I threw the spline spider gear on and the C-clips in here, and basically these two gears sit like that. And then the spider gear pin sits in the center like that. And that other shaft sits here. And this is what keeps these shafts from sliding in. What happens when this shaft slides into the carrier, like this, is that clip falls out and that gear comes off. So basically, this little clip is what's holding in this axle shaft from hitting the exit door. What's going on with lights in here? Oh, got a bulb going down. Great, never reached that. Another thing to consider if you think you might put your spider gear assembly back in the future, make sure you pay attention which side is right and left, because they have shims on there, usually, and that's very important for the mesh of your spider gears. So write an R or an L or a dot or snowflake or whatever method you use so you know which side goes where. Now a guy could take this drum brake backing plate off, just get her all the way out of here. Then we'll put the discolator kit on, and then the last thing we'll do is slide those axle shafts back in and finish up that mini spool. These lights blinking in here makes me feel like I'm at one of them fancy bars in New York City, you know. I don't like it. I just don't like it. Would you stay on or just go off? I don't think it listens to English. Look at my wrenching going on here. This old greasy axle is going to look pretty funny with the brand new disc brake kit on it, but the cookie is crumbled. The cookie's crumbling. I'm going to take a wire wheel and just shoot some stuff in my cheeks over here. Maybe dig some of this out. A couple few pounds in there. Maybe I won't spray paint on her, because quite honestly, it's going to be a couple hours cleaning this housing up. Maybe I will. I'm not sure yet. We're getting some weight reduction out of this, I feel like. There's just golf ball sized globs of stuff coming out of here. Discolator's on this side. I was going to do both and then just go ta-da, it's done, but I'm going to be honest. I'm really impressed with how easy this kit was to install. So I'm going to do it step by step on the other side. I just want to try to empower you fellers to do some of this stuff yourself. Anyway, tools needed, it's really nothing. I got a ratchet with a little Allen wrench thingy, plugger inner on there, 9/16 open end, And I got my Ooga Dooga 1200, but you could just use another wrench or socket or whatever. Parts, of course, we got our rotor. We've got our caliper bracket here. We got the caliper, which already came pre-installed with pads. That's nice. And then we got some shims. There's, I think 3 or 4 different flavors of them. 2-inch bolts, 3 of those, and 1.5-inch bolt. And that's literally everything you need to do this kit. It's really simple. I had to do it twice on the other side just so I could figure out my shim. And I'm thinking it's going to be the exact same over here, so I'm just going to put it together once and see what we got. Now there is a splash shield that you can put on here as well. I opted not to do that. That goes on the outside of the flange. This is the flange here. And this also comes with an emergency brake adapter-rooney thingy on here with the spring and all that. So you fellers driving Manuels, you're covered too. I took it off because I don't think I'm gonna need that where I'm going. So basically all I gotta do, since I'm not running a splash shield on here, I gotta use this spacer, it said. On the back side, I need the middle sized spacer upper thing. That goes on the inside of the flange. So does my bracket. I just got to line these up right. There we go. Short bolt goes on the corner here that doesn't go through the caliper bracket. Throw the hardware on. I don't know how much torque you're supposed to do, so I just have it set to all. Seems appropriate. Make sure that this caliper bracket here is spraying off to the backside. So the reason a guy put a spacer in there, and again there's a couple different sizes, is we want this rotor right dead center between the pads on the caliper here. So if it's kicked off, actually it'd be in this way. What we can do is put a shim in there and basically create an offset and pull this in so it centers it up better. Pretty sure that's for even pad wear. I don't know. Let's just do what the instructions say. Slide this guy back in. Now, before we get too excited, I got to crawl underneath. We got to put part of that mini spool in. That slides in, and then we could pop that axle in. Then we'll finish up the brakes. Now we can set our rotor on. I'm going to take one lug and just snug this up down here on the bottom, and that'll keep it tight against the axle flange. And I mean, this is really it, guys. Of course, there's the brake line we still have to install. But I mean, as far as hardware and all of that, we're done. Super simple. You could do this in the driveway with some Walmart tools or whatever else on a Saturday, really easy. There is quite a bit of rust. That's fine. Didn't see it. Well, we do got to slide our retaining clips back in. Remember, these used to be round. Guys got to throw them in a grinder and just zit, zit, karate the ends off. Completely normal. Every mini spool I've ever done. It's just part of the process. Oh, that one just wanted to go home. And slide the axles out again. There we go. Now we just got to throw the old center section in. And we're locked up, I guess, huh? Almost done, so that's what that looks like put together in there. And I'm rotating what would be the drive shaft, and you notice I'm not spinning the axles. The final step is a pin, and that pin is going to go through here, right there. And that's going to lock the mini spool to the carrier. Like that. Just a hair too far. There we go. Just put a couple threads in. Now if I turn, there we go. We're fully locked. Last thing a guy wants to do before we button this down is figure out our gear ratio here. A couple different ways we can do that. Guy can do the old count the tire and the drive shaft rotation. You can count the teeth on the ring gear. Just use a paint marker or whatever you got. Same with the pinion, divide them. Or we're just gonna look right here, it's stamped right on it, 1541. So if we just come over here and do 41 divided by 15, that gives us a 273 rear. Now that is horrible for the street and it's horrible for drag racing. That's definitely a highway gear. But for a burnout rig, that might do us pretty might fine actually. And I was hoping it might be like a 308, but 273 might work. Now that I have the actual ratio, I can do a tire speed calculation because I've got my gear, I've got my transmission gear, and I've got my tire height. So I'll be doing that in a little bit. But I got this cleaned up, so let's go ahead and slap that cover on. Now, if you're an old hot rodder, you know that if you're going to put big horse in a car, you just ignore upgrading anything with structural integrity in the rear end or any components. But if you paint the diff cover, you're doing good. If you got a chrome one, 87 horsepower. And on Craigslist, if you're searching for a car, that means someone put in a posi, they just can't find the receipt, and maybe it's at their mom's house. They can't remember. Guys, just throwing some juice in here. Little plug on the side. Just fill her up till she starts weeping out and bang the plug back in. That's about it. One final thing I'm doing in here is putting new air shocks on it. Subscriber actually sent me these months ago, and the old ones are literally toast. Both because they were bad and I had to torch them out of the car. The hardware was so rusted in there. Now these have been known to contribute to wheel hop, and probably why traction bars became so popular in the 70s and 80s. You know, everyone had air shocks or they were shackled up. But we already tested ride height with no air in the shocks, and those wheels fit in the tires. So we'll do the same. We'll just take all the air out of these. But when we cruise her around, we're gonna bring the back end all the way up. I mean, if you're not wearing a seat belt, you're gonna be laying on the steering wheel. 100% 70s style. Hits. The hardware to the brake lines I got just taped up here. I got some lines being made right now for the brakes. I'm gonna wait till those get in before I weld the tabs on. That'll be the final step for the brakes. But it's looking pretty good, actually. Well, it's really late. I think I got everything cleaned up for tonight. Honest day's work. Thanks for hanging out with me. We did get quite a bit done. We got that rear end just locked up tighter than Alcatraz. We got those nice disc stoppelators put on, and got some air shocks so we can get some altitude out of this bad boy. We got plenty to do. Fuel system, electrical, engine installation, you name it, and I'm running out of time. If this interests you, mazel subscribe. Go ahead and hit that button. Hit the bell thing too. I think that does something. I don't know. Until next time, keep her greasy side down. Yes. Missed both. Not good.